Welcome to the Johnny Dell Football Academy podcast on the channel that's trying to answer the whys and hows of the game by talking through and dissecting game film and diving deeper to explain why the X's zig and the O's zag. I am Adam Marino, joined by Mr. Johnny Dell, and we are reminding you, as always, the most fun way to watch is on YouTube, where we go live. There you can comment into the live show. Be sure to hit the notification bell and turn on your notifications so you can be a part of the conversation. We also stream live on Facebook and X. Also, the audio versions are always found on Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts. Now, if you are live with us in the chat, it's probably because you are subscribed, you've hit the notification bell, and turned those notifications on. So, when sharing with your friends, be sure to let them know. We also love to hear from you outside of our live show. Email us at johnnydellsfootballacademy@gmail.com, and you can always check out the website jfa49.com, as it is the most fun way to support the channel. Also, the way we boost the chat and boost the algorithm is to type out hashtag JD49. Yes. Today is a Friday, August 16th, which means it is time for the best 49ers podcast around, because we talk about the whys and hows of the game. Hopefully everyone had a chance to check out Johnny's first video of the season. It was so awesome to see some clips that I was able to see live. I'm not
in person.
Not bragging or anything. I'm not much of a bragger, but I am the greatest ever to go to a preseason game. Just kidding. So thank you to Mikey Gutierrez, Lisa. What's up, Lisa? She's up early. Quiffle Ball. Dr. Steve, of course, is in the building. Those boosting the algorithm. What's up, Dre? What's up, Johnny? How you guys doing?
Good, man. I'm doing great. It was just great to see football again. It was great to see it in the Johnny Dell breakdown video again to get me hyped. No, just everything's good on my end, dude. Just super excited.
Yep.
Yeah,
Johnny.
it was so finally good to get some actual football since the Super Bowl. Now, then Diamador Lenore had to come out and remind us, just as we were ready to turn the page, and remind us about the Super Bowl, but we'll get into that later. But it was just good to see something new, something where we weren't sitting here saying what might happen, what could happen, what should happen, what we think will happen, and what might be different this year. It was, you actually started to see some real things now. It was mostly guys who probably won't make the team for a lot of the game. Like there was some really good things there. There was also some things of like, okay, that is probably not going to change this year, or hopefully that's a practice squad guy.
Right.
Dre's checking his mic. He's like, I got some things here.
We're gonna get into a few things here. I want to take care of a few house, not housewarming. What do you call that when you?
Housewarming?
No. House cleaning items. I want that. I think that's the phrase, house cleaning, like to let you know a little bit about the channel. So tell new people about this channel and let them know the plan is, as we go into the season, that, as by the way, very cool, and we got congratulated on this, Johnny, if you saw a couple people on Monday, we're at episode 151, which is pretty freaking sweet.
Wow.
So thanks to all the support. Episode 151, that's really cool. But we want to let you know a little bit about the channel. So housekeeping items. I guess.
Yeah,
they got it. So here's what we're doing. So on Monday, hopefully that is a victory Monday, as most games are on Sundays. We are going to be live 7:30 a.m. Eastern. So as you're getting ready for work, you can get up, get your coffee, and hang with us. And then on Friday, around the same time, we are going to go into, a little bit of the breakdown of what we see going into the next game, which we will do with the Saints. I know it's preseason, but the starters are going to play a little bit. We'll get into that. And we on Fridays, I want Dre to explain a little bit what's going on Fridays and why you're with us and how excited we are and kind of go through that story a little bit because some people are like, "Oh, hey, a guest." And like you're kind of going to be with us. So give us that breakdown and then let's get into all this we got a big show today. We got a lot of stuff to get into. So Dre, take it away a little bit.
Yeah, no, on Fridays I'll be joining you guys to talk about the, upcoming Niner game. Obviously giving my point of view as well on some of the insights of the game. So it's gonna be a lot more fun. Not to say that your Monday show isn't fun. Your Monday show is great. I'm saying it's gonna be fun as well, and I'm just really excited to be a part of this. And we'll streaming it on my channel as well. So we'll, see what audience that we can garner over on my side. But dude, I really appreciate it, and yeah, no, it should be a lot of fun. Sorry, I was reading something.
I know we're doing like 19 things at so yeah, basically again what we're going to be doing is Johnny will have the breakdown videos and those will be out when he can get to them, usually by Tuesday, Wednesday, usually is kind of when those are out. And again,
depending on if we play Sunday night or Monday night.
Yeah, it's always life happens. But just
night.
Guys, this is why I've say this a lot that your notification bell needs to be turned on. There's a reason. I don't get paid to say that. That's not a thing. I am helping you so that when you tell people that it resonates in your mind to let them know, oh yeah, be sure to hit the notification bell because it's not always clockwork. So that's not how life goes. So you need to be notified. So that's why we do that. And we want you to tell people when you share your phone with someone that should resonate. Oh, Adam says this all the time. That's why I do that, just so you know. So yes, be sure to hit the notification bell, let people know. But that's kind of the plan that we're going to go with for the season. We're super excited for another season with you guys. All right. So do you want to get into, I do like Sherman's podcast. I mean, I do listen to it, especially when he has Niners because he feels like those are his guys, and it's super fun. But I do listen to it. Johnny, do you normally listen to it, or do you just try and catch it when our guys are on?
I try and catch it as much as I can. As most creators know, our side of it, it's really hard to consume a lot just because there's so much that goes into keeping up with everything and hearing what everybody says. Normally I get caught up when I see clips. I want to catch as many people's shows as I can, but so like days that I'm not breaking down film and not going through film or working on stuff for the members website, chasing kids around and working my normal job, that I try and catch different stuff. But especially when he has 49ers on, I try and catch anything that he has there.
Yeah. So Dre, what about you? What's your so people, I'll say this with Sherm, they either love him or hate him, and even Niner fans, because they can't get over the fact that he was so disrespectful with the Crabtree thing and national TV with Aaron Andrews. Do we even want to bring that up? That was so bad. But he was a good leader for us. He was a leader for us.
He was kind of right.
He was kind of right, but at the same
on.
time, he was like, read the room. Do you really think that he wants to shake your hand at that moment? He was so pissed. And not only that, but the Seahawks fans and the team, they were so disrespectful and in your face and very loud. And it was kind of like, dude, just get away from me. And I get that. And so for me, at least, I think that, I like Sherman. I like his podcast. And I like the way it's structured, and I think I can look past his years with the Seahawks because I mean he did play for the Niners, he did help us get to a Super Bowl, and on top of that, I mean we all saw the Seahawks lose to the Patriots by throwing the interception in the end zone. So for me, that kind of made up for all the shitty things they did
and his face.
To us. Yeah,
Sherman's face of like
dude, that made up for all the shitty things they did to us because. It's like they had it coming. And so that's why I was like, yes, you had it coming. You all had it coming. You deserve that loss. And because of that, I was like, you know what? He's not that bad of a guy. And plus, he's the Niners. So, although the last year he played with us, they were all hurt almost the entire year, and it was not very good. But that first year, it was really good. But I'm anxious to hear this clip or this audio from Diamondor Lenore, because I have not heard this yet, so I'm really, really excited about it. I had to work all day yesterday.
All right, man.
Go grab an ice pack.
Oh my
That's all I'll
God,
say.
that's gonna be rough.
Go back and watch the Super Bowl.
I went back. I had to watch it. Like, I just had to see. But I kind of felt, because like I talked to Wilkes like before the game, and I was just telling them how I was feeling. You know, I was like, you know, me, I watch a lot of film, so I was just seeing where the ball was going. And I was like, it's mainly in between the hashes, you know, it's going to the slots. Like, they don't really got no dominant outside guy. Right. So like, I was telling them, like, I feel like I should be in the slot this game. Like, I never came to him, because I never questioned the coach, never questioned decisions and nothing. I came to him. That was the only time I came to him, and I said that. But, you know, they had their philosophy, and what they felt worked, was going to work, and they made that decision. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna just roll with it, and I'm gonna just try to do what I can to help us win.
Well, look, I'm gonna tell you this from experience, and as an old man who don't play no more, just go talk to Kyle.
Yeah.
Like, at that point, look, if you get any kind of feeling in your heart, any kind of inkling, just go talk to Kyle. Let it. Hey, it's his team. It's his what he want to do with it. Because I think that'll move the needle next time. Like, if you'd have said that to him, you'd have been playing inside the Super Bowl, and that would have been the end of it. Like, he would have lived with it. He would have lived with it because it was a gut feeling from you. It's one of those things, the universe and the energy and all that. It would have happened just like that.
We so don't want to hear that. Like, that is so, like, it's just like, oh, to think of what, I mean, even to break up one play, I know I see the clips of Bosa being held, and I do wonder about that as well. There's so many things that go across our mind when we think of the Super Bowl, but like, just, to hear that is like gut wrenching for sure. Dre, you haven't seen it, man. Talk to us.
It just reaffirms the decision to fire Steve Wilkes, because it's like, yeah, good. I'm glad he's gone. And after talking with Johnny, especially, it was a bad fit from the start. That's it. I don't know. It's just, rehashing this loss isn't very much fun. And knowing that, like, you know, he was like, hey, put me in the slot because that's where all the action is. And he probably said, oh, don't worry about it. We got a plan.
We got it, young buck.
Yeah, just to disregard that, it's like, oh my God, are you serious? I don't know, man. That's just tough. That's tough to hear.
So, for perspective, in the previous two playoff games, the 49ers had Diamondor Lenore in the slot 35 times, I think it was, against the Lions, and 36 times against the Packers. And against the Chiefs, he was in the slot twice. Now, for perspective, Ambry Thomas was in there and played horrible against the Lions and the Packers. It was not good. Slot, that third corner spot was such a liability all season long. Mm-hmm. They started out with Demo outside, and it was
slow guy.
Isaiah Oliver was playing the slot. He was brought in, a Wilkes guy. He was brought in to play the slot, and he was better at playing zone. He was much worse at playing man, and they were getting cooked in man coverage. So that was, now the very first game, Demo was in the slot. Ambry Thomas was outside. They were playing more zone, and Ambry Thomas was getting roasted. The 2 minutes before the half against the Steelers was some of the worst 2 minutes of corner play I've seen as far as some zone coverages in a long time. It was bad. It was not just bad. It was like get you cut kind of bad. it was just so many unacceptable things in the 2 minutes. And because remember, that was the 49ers were up 23-0 at that point. I think it was, or 23 to 3. And the Steelers went down in the last 2 minutes and scored a touchdown. And they just abused Ambry Thomas. So it was after that game, they put in Isaiah Oliver and Demo was in the slot. Things got somewhat better as far as playing zone. But then, and this was part of, not the only reason, but part of why you would see the 49ers, their trend as far as defensive EPA on the season was like start out really high, and then each game it was getting worse.
Mm-hmm.
And then they hit the bye, and then they came out of the bye, and it went really high, and then each game it got worse. Some of that was that switch from Ambry and Isaiah Oliver back and forth, that they started out really high, and then teams started to figure out, as watching the film, you could pick on Ambry Thomas in zone, and that the recognition wasn't there. And so they would start to lean on that more and more. Or it was Isaiah Oliver was in there, and you can pick on him in man coverage. And so they were using that more and more. They were finding your weakness and then pressing on it. And then after the bye, we had a big change back to Ambry Thomas. And that's when you saw the EPA jump up. Teams were not expecting that. They were expecting Isaiah Oliver to be in there. They were expecting to be able to abuse you in man coverage. Ambry Thomas is much better in man coverage. Now he's still has some issues there. Obviously not as much now because his biggest issue is a broken forearm. But it was like teams would then figure out that that's what you were doing and that that's the personnel they were doing. And then they would start to lean into that. And I think they were trying to say, okay, we're going to have the analytics tells us that if Andy Reid is coming in and he knows I'm going to have Ambry Thomas on the outside and you're playing more zone or more man coverage, then they're going to do things to abuse you. We'll be able to take advantage of them, go a little more zone heavy and have Demo outside and Isaiah Oliver in the slot, or bring in the third safety, Logan Thomas. Will be good there, and we'll have that element. The problem was by the second half, after Dre Greenlaw went down, you couldn't run that, and Andy Reid had figured you out. So that was a problem. And to see how much that was, and especially, and this is really, really hard for me because I've watched the last 2 drives that the Chiefs had, which were the only 2 full length of the field drives for touchdowns that the Chiefs had. There were so many coverage issues inside. To see that it's hard to swallow. And I go, look, that's why, in everything I've said, I understand why he let Wilkes go. It wasn't just a scapegoat thing. This was not a good fit. He didn't understand like Ambry, or like Demo said there, they were sticking with their philosophy. I've said it going back to his firing, that Steve Wilkes' philosophy was diametrically not in line with what the 49ers have done in the past. And we're going to talk about that a little bit here. Some things I liked to see from our preseason game. But yeah, that's how I feel about that.
For sure. So Lisa, with the super chat, so Thomas breaking his forearm is actually a good thing. Who will be our third cornerback? What do you think, Johnny?
It's I always,
you hate to say it, but
I hate to say good thing. It's never good for the team for a guy to miss time. Right. What I think is better is to see will some of the other guys step up.
Yes.
Rock Ya-Sin actually played a much better game than Ambry Thomas did by a mile. I showed it on my X account. Ambry Thomas, and we talked about this play Monday on that crack toss that Malik Mustafa came up and filled. Ambry Thomas was the force defender on that play. So that means he's the widest man on the field to force the play back inside. It cannot get outside of him. If you get out, if you allow that play to get outside of you, the defense is cooked. You don't have another, you are the last line of defense on that side. That's why they call it the force defender. He was driven 20 yards off the ball on that play.
So far back. I saw that. I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
11 yards.
And I get it. He was going against a tight end, but What is the big reason that Samuel Womack hasn't gotten time? Because he wasn't physical enough. Why did the 49ers love Richard Sherman, especially at the end of his career? It wasn't just his ability to cover. It was his ability to be physical against the run. I mean, that dude would come up and make tackles. They loved that side of him. Yeah. They love that. They love that from their corners. We've seen that from Demo, that he gets in there and he's physical on the outside. That's what they loved about Emmanuel Mosley. He was physical and he would be a forced defender. What did they not love about Ahkello Witherspoon? Dude was soft on the outside. He was not a good run defender. And that's what we saw from Ambry Thomas there. So I really liked what I saw from Rock Yassin there. I think there's some, what's going to happen there with Isaac Yadam. Is he going to be the slot guy? Is Renardo Green going to be the slot guy? I think Renardo Green has a ways to go as far as learning the slot positions. The NFL game, he's as he saw in preseason, is different from college. And playing slot in the NFL game is much more different. You have a lot more moving parts. On the outside, you can kind of sit there and let the routes kind of, the switch releases work out in front of you, and you can sit back and read, and it's easier to see the last guy outside. It's a lot harder when you're trying to figure out who's the final number 2 inside, when you have 3 guys changing spots and things. So, there's some recognition stuff that it's going to take some time with him. I'm not expecting Renardo Green to be in there early in the year, especially with what I saw. I think these preseasons will be really, really important for him. With that, I think Darrell Luter, Rock Yassin, Isaac Yadam, I like that in our room better than I do Ambry Thomas as a number 3. I think Ambry Thomas was on the outside looking in already. Yeah, him and Samuel Womack were on the outside looking in already. Yeah. And this broken forearm only kind of exacerbates that.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that he broke his forearm, was it forearm he broke? Yeah. At least we know that we have
Mike Rump style.
Yeah, Mike Rump style. At least we know we have some reinforcements coming midway through the year or later on in the year. But I think that we know what we're going to get out of Ambry Thomas for the most part, and I think that this at least gives the opportunity for the other guys to really step up and show what they have. Renardo Green did show some growing pains based on what I saw. So I think he can kind of develop into a better defensive back. But now we get to see more of, we're not going to see Rock Yassin because he hurt his ankle, which was like, but now maybe we get to see more of Isaac Yadam, more of Renardo Green. So I want to see what these guys have. I want to see what these guys can bring to the table. We've seen what Womack can do. We've seen what Ambry Thomas can do. And I also want to see Darrell Luter. I want to see what he brings to the table because, I mean, this guy has all kinds of athletic ability. And we've seen him in special teams make some pretty good plays. So I want to see what Darrell Luter can bring to the table in one of those 2 spots. I mean, we did draft him last year, and I know he was hurt most of the year, but I think he can make a difference.
So let's talk depth chart a little bit going into the game against the Saints as well. And it was announced that the starters are going to see some time. Johnny, how much time do you think? What are some of the key players that you're looking for? What do you think about the Saints game?
Well, the Saints game is, I think you're going to see maybe, 10 to 12 snaps is what they're shooting for the starters. That was kind of their goal for this last game. Kyle talked about that a little bit, that they really wanted to see, like Aaron Banks, for example, they wanted to get about 10 snaps for him. And thankfully the first series went about 10 to 12 plays, something like that, and down, and they scored. And so that's why Banks left the game after the first drive, is they hit the snap count look that they were looking to get for him. Same with a few other guys. So I think with the starters, they have a goal. Now, if they go 3 and out and then 3 and out in 2 series and they only get 6 snaps, I don't think like technician, who are you folks going to be focusing on watching Adam, Trey, and Johnny? Yeah, there's the 3 of us here. But that if they go 3 and out, they go 3 and out. You're going to see 6 snaps. And they're going to say, look, we're not exposing to another drive, because you could have then a 12-play drive, and suddenly you've exposed your starters to 18 snaps when you really only wanted 10. So
With all of our
I think,
injuries and stuff, it's a little nerve-wracking.
I think what they want to
play?
get, maybe he might get one series. I bet he's gonna want to play one series, and Kyle's gonna be like, I'd rather you take like 2 snaps, hand the ball off, and then get out. Like, just get out there, go through taking a snap and getting in and out of the huddle. Like, I just want you to go through that and then sit down. I think he also wants to see more from his quarterbacks, that Brandon Allen, Josh Dobbs, and Tanner Mordecai. I think they want to get some looks at them. Last week was clearly an effort to get a good read on Josh Dobbs. I think they wanted Brandon Allen in there for the first half of the game. Not as much. I think they know who Brandon Allen is. I think the bigger thing was they wanted to get a fair read on everybody else. You want somebody in there who can run the offense, much like when they brought Brian Hoyer in, Kyle's first year. Why did he bring him in? He wanted a quarterback he knew could just run their offense, spit out the plays, make sure that that the plays were just able to be run. And so, because he was evaluating the whole roster, he knew he was going to need that. So he wanted to be able to get a look at everybody in a fair look, not just, oh, well, our quarterback, said this play wrong and the receiver's on the wrong side. And so the concept doesn't even make sense. And it's harder to get a fair look at everybody. So I think they really wanted that in the first half last week. Then Josh Dobbs came in. They wanted to get a look at Dobbs. I would not be surprised if we saw Dobbs come in maybe the second quarter. They probably want to see him if they needed to run a 4-minute offense or kind of move through. I just think, that's what they're going to be looking for. I think he's going to get in. I think they want to get Tanner Mordecai at least a quarter in there. Just their history of how they've used these preseason games. That's what I expect.
Yeah, it'll be exciting to see. Looking at your Twitter's like the most fun thing to just scroll through and laugh. Just even the 49ers content creators with funny gifs, and like Crystal, me waiting for Brandon Ayuk to re-sign with the Niners, and it's that dog just casually petting the baby gate away, and John has a poll about Ricky Pearsall, John Chapman. Like, so I'm scrolling through and I see you're locked and loaded. What are you looking at here? I see your ring light. I see it looks like a Titans play. What do you got going on here?
So I got some film.
And Jurassic Park, you have that.
Well,
Park,
I always have my coffee. I always have a big giant mug of coffee. I'm a coffee hog over here. So it was kind of going back to the Steve Wilks thing. I pulled a clip because there's something that I'm excited to see from Nick Sorensen bring back that philosophically we did not see much with Steve Wilks.
Yeah.
And so the question has always become, can the 49ers defense be better this year than it was last year? And is letting Steve Wilks go really that much of a move? So we're going to jump to some film here. We're going to get this on here. Let's see if I can go full screen with this on here. What am I doing over here? What is happening? Nope, I need to click on that. I'm trying to get the right clicks here. So I'm going to go to this view, get our faces off here. Some people said, try that. It could make it a little easier to see. That's as easy as I can get it, folks. This is a pressure package and coverage that we saw maybe twice last season, maybe 3 times. And it was something that was a staple among Saleh and DeMeco Ryans. So first thing you'll notice is we got this mugged look up here. It's a really dirty, muddy look up front. You got all these guys up close to the line of scrimmage. You have your linebackers are mugging the A gaps. So that means they're standing over the A gaps, bringing immediate threat. I'll talk about that a little bit from the end zone when we get there. But here's what we do coverage-wise that we did not see philosophically from Steve Wilks. So this is going to look like man coverage, but it's actually a zone afterwards. It's what we call zone with man match principles. So it's going to be an man match. What does that mean? Man match is an idea where if, say, this guy was out here and they're in a bunch formation and you're playing man coverage, that you're not necessarily going to be, I got this cat and I got this cat. What you're going to do is say, this guy's got the first guy inside. This guy's got the first guy outside. So if they switch, they don't get to pick you and create rub routes. So that's man match, is that you don't have a specific guy. You have first in and first out sort of a thing. So playing zone with man match principles is the idea that you're playing the final number of a receiver. So on the outside here, Ambry Thomas has the final number 1. So he knows this by formation, that this guy will be the final number 1 because the running back's in the backfield. He's attached. So he is not detached out here. And so Ambry Thomas, we know man coverage right there. Okay. On the outside, this is Rock Ya-Sin. He's got in what's called mod coverage, which is man outside and deep. So unless this guy comes in really quick and there's an outbreaker, he's going to be manned. So that's why he's up in bump. Is he's going to say, if this guy breaks in, I'm going to disrupt him so he can't run any sort of interference or anything, and he doesn't have a free release. So most likely this is going to be outside in any sort of way. So he's most likely man here. That's why he's up in bump. So then you have, I believe this is Renardo Green in here. Renardo Green has the final number 2. So you have a tight end and a slot. They're in here. That's why he's playing outside leverage way out here, because he doesn't have to worry about giving up as much to the inside, because if this guy comes in, you have an outbreaker. He's going to take the outbreaker. So he's got the final number 2. And then you have Curtis Robinson is going to back out here, and he's going to match the final number 3. And once they match, they're in man coverage. So these guys underneath are playing zone with man match principles. So what that also means is that if this tight end stays in a block, Curtis Robinson isn't just saying, okay, I'm going to sit over this guy. He then is going to drop and be a hook zone. And you have a deep hook or deep middle safety here. So this is the kind of thing that we didn't see from Steve Wilks, because Steve Wilks didn't like putting his linebacker potentially on a slot receiver. That's what you didn't see very much of. But we're going to see that here. If we play it now, look, right at the snap, Curtis Robinson, he's backing out. What's he looking for? Who's the final number 3? That's what he's reading. You got man has locked up here. Man has locked up here. And what is Renardo Green doing? They're reading who's the final number 2, who's the final number 3. And there they've split out. So that's where Renardo Green transitions. Man coverage. Curtis Robinson, he takes him. He doesn't have to worry about anything deep because he's got a safety over the top, right? So he's just looking for anything crossing over the field to pick it up. Now, here's where, I don't like Ambry Thomas. He's already committed to an outside route. I don't understand this. And they drive on him, and it's a completion on 3rd and 9. Like, I don't know. That kind of stuff frustrates me. So that's coverage-wise, I like that. It gives you a lot of answers. We got a lot of good rushes in 2022, 2021, 2020, 2019, playing these kinds of coverages, because this would be Fred Warner. And Fred can go attack and pick up number 3 receivers, even if it's a slot guy. From the end zone, why do I like this? Well, because what you're doing when you mug these linebackers up, you're presenting threats. So the line has to account for that. So how are they going to account for this? Well, tackle has got to come out on the defensive end. Guard's got to come out on the defensive tackle. Center has to come towards Curtis Robinson. So you're forcing a line slide. And usually this coverage is based upon where's the running back. So if the running back is over here, then Curtis Robinson rushes and D. Winters drops. But because the running back is on that side, you're going to have Curtis Robinson drop. Let me put this in red. Why? Well, because that means that the first person who can pick up that immediate threat, because he's right over the line, has got to be the center. So you're forcing a line slide away from where you want to bring pressure. You're forcing a line slide to Curtis Robinson's side, and he's going to drop into coverage. So this center will end up having wasted protection. That's why you do that. Oh, again, You drop the linebacker away from the running back. So you force the center on a line slide. So that means then the guard has to account for D Winters. The tackle has to account for the defensive tackle. The running back now has to account for Robert Beal off the edge. This is how you can manufacture one-on-ones. And then what we're going to do is we're going to bring Malik Mustafa on a rush off the edge. So you're able to bring what is 5 guys in the end. You're going to bring 5 guys, and you're going to, 6 guys, and you're able to pick up everybody. So, because the question then, the last thing on this is how do you count for the running back? Well, this is something I talked about on my members website with a wide 9 is if this running back flares out and he doesn't come in to protect, then because that's now a hot, and you say, well, if we're bringing Malik Mustafa off the edge, we're bringing Robert Beal off the edge, how do we then cover the running back? Well, you're going to have Robert Beal in what's called a peel rush. So he's going to read that running back, and if that running back goes out into the flat hot, he's going to peel out and cover him. So that allows you to be certain you are going to get an unblocked guy off the edge. If the running back stays in the block, you have an unblocked guy off the edge. If the running back goes out into the pass pattern, you have an unblocked guy off the edge, and you're also covering everybody. Now, here's the problem. We do have a problem in execution on this play from Robert Beal. Mm-hmm. So here we're going to watch it play out. You're going to see the stress that this puts on the Titans. So, boom. Here, where's the center looking? He's got to look. There it is. That's that slide. He's got to look towards Curtis Robinson. Just like I said, tackle here, tackle here. So now the running back, what they're doing is they've said we're going to have the running back pick up the inside rush, and we're going to block outside. So this is where Robert Beal, his recognition, he's expecting the running back to be out here, not the tackle. So he was coming up to attack the running back and let Mustafa come around. This is where he's got to change this up a little bit. He's got to go attack this tackle and don't let this guy get wide, and recognize the running back is not coming out in the flat. He's working his way vertical. Let me clean this up. He's working his way vertical because he's got to pick up this running back if he flares out. Well, that throws off this rush. You want Mustafa with his speed to get an absolute as straight of a line as possible that he can towards the quarterback. Well, Beal goes wide. That pulls the tackle wide. Mustafa has to run around the tackle, and you can see it. He's got a dip, loses his footing. You want him coming in and lighten up that quarterback. If he stays on his feet, that's probably a sack. Okay.
Yeah, man.
So that is stuff that we didn't see from Steve Wilkes last year. You can see the problems it creates for the defense, but philosophically, why did Steve Wilkes not do that? It's something, again, reading the tea leaves and kind of analyzing who Steve Wilkes was through all of the game film last year was Steve Wilkes wanted his most favorable matchups in coverage. And so while that look gives you an incredibly advantageous rush, that look does not give you a great one-on-one matchup sort of situation on the back end. But that is something that was part of the 49ers DNA. It's Fred Warner. Yes, he may be covering Cooper Kupp, and that happened over the years as that final number 3. And that is not a good matchup. Fred Warner on Cooper Kupp. That's not a good matchup. You don't like him in space on that. I love Fred Warner. He's not covering Cooper Kupp in man coverage all game long. But he doesn't have to cover him that long. He has to cover him for 2 seconds.
Right.
Just on in breakers.
Because
we didn't see this very much. But because you schemed up the pass rush. Steve Wilkes was like, well, look, we got all this talent up front. We got Javon Hargrave. We got Eric Armstead. We got Nick Bosa.
They should just get there.
We should just be getting there. Because on the back end, that gives me so much to do with favorable coverage matchups. But so often we didn't see pass rush married to coverage. You didn't see the timings of those two things working out. That is what I'm excited to see. We saw this run twice in preseason. This play, this coverage and pressure package, twice in the first preseason game. I saw it like 2 or 3 times all season last year.
Wow.
So I'm really excited to see this come back.
We already saw it in preseason already, and it's like, okay. So one thing I want to say, and Dre, then get your thoughts. One thing I want to say is, and I typed it into the chat. We've been doing this a while now, that I get a kick out of it every freaking time. That every time we're in church, it's quiet. We were just in church, y'all, and the chat was dead silent because we're all just with our mouth open, just like, oh, like, it's so funny to see. I can't get enough of it. Like, I wish the whole show was like that. I know that would put a burden on Johnny. There's so much to go over, but oh my gosh, it's so fun when he does these breakdowns, guys. And this is why I love being a part of the channel. I think that's why Dre wanted to be a part as well. And shout out to Lisa again. Has anyone ever told you that you're a football genius? Yeah, we don't want his head to explode, but he knows it. He's a humble guy. But I love that the chat goes just completely, we're done boosting the algorithm because we're busy watching the footage of what Johnny's showing us. So again, make sure that you hit the notification bell, because that was just a little version of what you get. I mean, these videos that he does are usually between 17 and 20 minutes, the breakdown, and this was just a quick little blurb. So make sure that you look at the channel and see all the video breakdowns, and we're very excited. I agree with Callie Young, liking the scheme, everything. Dre, have you noticed this idea of basically bringing the heat, and that we haven't, and what are your thoughts moving forward?
Well, this is something that Johnny had brought up last season, and I remember streaming with him, and he was talking about how, Steve Wilkes always was in favor of putting his defensive backs in the best position to win. And so he didn't, like you were saying, he didn't want his linebackers covering a receiver. But if you look at the way the scheme is set up, like Johnny was saying, you're only having to, he's only having to cover a receiver, that's like Fred Warner, for a very short amount of time. Plus, he has safety help behind him. So even if the receiver busts past him, he knows he has safety help. And so this allows more pressure to be put on the quarterback. Now, remember, that quarterback only had, like you were saying, about 2 seconds to make a decision and get rid of the ball. But the fact that Robert Beal went wide, which I don't know why he did that really kind of jacked everything up, because then Mustafa then had to go around him. It almost seemed like Robert Beal was like, I'm going to go behind Mustafa. He's going to be my lead man. It was kind of like, well, what are you doing, dude? You're supposed to take that guy. But look, this is the difference you get when you watch a podcast like this, is that, it's one thing to talk about these schemes and these coverages and these packages, but to see it on film makes a huge difference. And so it allows the viewer to say, hey, look, I see what he's talking about. I know exactly what he means now. And then you can apply that to when you're watching the game. Like, oh, there's that same package. Exactly. And I can see how they improved on that. Now we're talking about Robert Beal, lined up. When we get to the regular season, it's not going to be Robert Beal. It's going to be Nick Bosa in that spot. So, Johnny's.
Oh, I'm muted. Sorry. Or Leonard Floyd. And this is also, this is why I get irritated just from, I get irritated when I see takes all the time. Like Nick Bosa dropped in coverage twice in that game. And people go, why is Nick Bosa dropping in coverage? Nick Bosa should never drop in coverage. And I said, well, that's why, because there's a very specific scheme involved here. Mm-hmm. And so what you're doing is you're saying, okay, that team is saying we're going to bring a tight end in to chip Nick Bosa so we can put him on a peel rush, and we can bring Malik Mustafa or Diamador Lenore off the slot, get him as a free rusher on the quarterback. As much as I love Nick Bosa, a free rusher from one of those two guys running free at the quarterback is a faster pass rush pressure than Nick Bosa will ever be against the tackle. So that, it's another tool in your toolbox. While I don't love the idea of Nick Bosa covering a running back all the time, it gives you an element of surprise. We saw all of the pressure packages that
Steve Wilkes.
No, Chiefs defensive coordinator Spagnuolo brought against us, right? He was manufacturing so many free hitters and so many gaps that were exploited. That's what we used to see a lot from Saleh and Ryans, because they were front guys. They were front guys that had to do with the fronts. And it was philosophically part of what they did. Again, going back to when Steve Wilkes was fired, what were the things that Kyle Shanahan said? He said, I just felt like from a philosophical point that of what we do really well, we weren't able to execute that and now he's talked about it also. He said it's cover 3 for us. We weren't really good at cover 3 last year. We couldn't come out and just play that and be the best in the league at that. It starts with being really, really good at cover 3. And what does that mean? That means your linebackers, in a way we play cover 3, are able to match a lot of number 3 routes over the middle. We weren't as good at that. We gave up a lot of first downs to the number 3 throughout the year. And that's just a problem. How are you accounting for this? What are you doing in other areas? So it's just, I like the tools that it gives you in your toolbox, because then the team can't just come out and say, well, we're going to double Nick Bosa every time. Nick Bosa got doubled so many times last year. And then we saw a little bit of that the rate of that happening drop a little bit when Chase Young came along, because teams had to start focusing on him more. But it was still like, I'm going, why don't we have these stunts? Why don't we have these problems? We're forcing quarterbacks to work more post snap, not just making receivers work more post snap. We're making quarterbacks work more post snap, and we're allowing time for these stunts and twists and pressures and forcing line slides to come in. We started to see some of that after the bye week. We saw even one formation. I was like, thank you. Finally, we're doing something different and creative up front. It was after the bye week, and Chase Young came out. I remember there was a play. We had Chase Young and Nick Bosa mugging the A gaps, just like we saw the linebackers do. It was Nick Bosa and Chase Young doing that. And they ran these games. It was like, and we were getting great. The defense played so well against the Jaguars.
Yeah.
And then we didn't see hardly any of that the rest of the year. I just don't understand why, but we're starting to see that sort of philosophy and tapping into that is coming back with Sorensen. I'm a big fan of it.
Huge. Going to be huge to see like this, some more pizzazz out of the defense. When you have pizzazz type players, you want to see some pizzazz. You want to see an alley-oop dunk. You want to see a 3-pointer from almost half court, right? You want to see a triple in Triples Alley, at Oracle Park. Like, you want to see that when you have a fast leadoff guy, you want to see him hit a triple into that gap, right? When you go to a game. So it's like in football, it's the same way. Talking defense, we want to see some of that stuff where we can scheme our guys into doing those things. We want to see Bosa do this 8 times a game. We want to see that. So we're definitely excited. Quiffleball says, I just don't understand why our blitzes felt so miserable last season. Like, you'd think they would have gotten home, but they always seem to give up yards. And that is exactly what we are saying. Great point, Quiffleball. Per usual, Quiffleball is one of our top 10 content additions. I must say. He's in our Hall of Fame.
And so going back to what I said at the very beginning of that film footage, is that Steve Wilkes did not have a lot of zone with man match principles. He just played a lot of man. And so when he blitzed, a lot of times it was man, or it was just a fire zone, which is zone coverage. He didn't have a lot of zone with man match principles. That was one of the big differences between Wilkes and Saleh and Ryans. Ryans played a lot of zone with man match principles with their pressure packages. Steve Wilkes did not. It was either man or it was either zone. He didn't play this kind of hybrid zone with man match principles very often. And again, it goes back to, how do you philosophically view that? And what did Diamador Lenore say? Their philosophy of how they wanted to play in that Super Bowl. I wasn't in the slot. That's what that has to do with.
Yeah, and sort of what Kelly Young is saying as well. The screen game, like, I don't know how many bubble screens I saw against the Niners last year that would obviously that would just cripple and diffuse the pass rush. And I'm hoping that Sorensen has a better plan of preventing that from being such a threat to the Niners defense.
Safeties coming up and tackling. It didn't happen very much. You had linebackers who their cutoff points. Or deliver points, which is what depth do they deliver to to the second level is going to be was a little bit deeper than it was before. So they're dropping a little bit deeper because he's saying, I'm not wanting my will to necessarily drop and turn and match the number 3. I want him to just gain depth, and I'm going to allow my safety to play the number 3 and my corner to match an inbreaker from the number 1. I know that's a lot. That sounds like a lot of jargon, but they were changing the structure of how they played some of that stuff. It wasn't as much, we're just going to do this. And it wasn't like they did that all the time. I guess what I'm saying is we did more spot dropping under Steve Wilkes than we did as much zone matching that we did under Saleh and Ryans. And so your linebackers are dropping a little bit deeper on those things, and they're not able to come up and address the screen as quickly. Your defensive line is getting frustrated because they're not able to get there on the pass rush. They're trying a little bit harder. You're giving up a lot of short passes. And so they're maybe a little more aggressive in that. And so they're getting caught not playing the screens. It all kind of cascades there. I think it sounds so cliche, but it's what Shanahan has talked about is that first you have to be really good at playing your cover 3. You have to be really good at that. And the way they do it, you have to be really good at it because that allows you to bring an extra element into the box to help stop the run. It allows your linebackers to not have to drop so deep, and then they can play the screens a little bit better, and it gets you in better 3rd and long situations, and it just allows you to be who you've been. The moment you start breaking down on that one side, it starts this cascading thing where you now it makes you more susceptible to this and it makes you more susceptible to that, and you saw that the best way to describe it is you felt it last season that the defense never felt dominant. The defense never felt in sync. They had some good numbers. They were not giving up a ton of points, but they never felt like they were just being cohesive. It felt like a round or a square peg in a round hole. Yeah. Like it felt like that.
Because they did before. They did feel like that dominant before.
And that's what was so crazy. And why we were having these arguments last year is that like 2022, our points per game that we were giving up wasn't that much better than 2023.
Yeah.
But it felt so much different.
It just did.
Yeah. Because you could tell guys felt comfortable running the scheme the way that Solid or Ryans did. It just never felt comfortable. And it was all those little things because you're changing just little things and it just suddenly makes it different. Now, it's not that you just keep running the same defense every year and never changing anything because teams do come after you. And it wasn't that Steve Wilkes was running less than they were running before. Shanahan talked about this, and I thought the exact same thing because somebody had asked him, was Steve Wilkes just running a more simple defense, and was it, was that a problem? And he said, no, actually, I felt like last year we ran more than we had in a long time. And he goes, and sometimes you do, you got to change things up or people are going to figure it out and come after you. Like we ran cover 4 tricks more than last season, more than I'd ever seen us run it with Saleh or Ryans. Like, and I've talked about, or I'm going to break that down on my members site of exactly what cover 4 tricks is. But like, that's a coverage that we didn't run a lot. And we ran it a lot last year with Steve Wilkes. Well, I like cover 4 tricks as a coverage. We didn't run it really well. So, it's just that kind of stuff. Like we ran more, but I just didn't like philosophically where we started.
Yeah. Go ahead, Dre.
No, I was going to say the frustrations that you saw on the field from the players, it was the same frustrations that most of the fans felt. And that's when you knew something wasn't right. Something wasn't working right, because it's one thing if they're giving up plays, but the way that they're giving them up with the talent they had, you can see how frustrated they were on the field. And that says a lot about how they're feeling about their coaching staff. And
hands going up like this, looking around, like you see it. We talked about it last year, Johnny, for sure. I definitely see what you're saying, Dre.
Yeah, absolutely. It was just really frustrating to see this much talent not being utilized in the right way, not having people in the right spots to utilize their to utilize their strengths, and it was just very, very frustrating. We did see a dominant defense against the Jaguars. We saw a good defense against the Cowboys, but a lot of those games, the offense would get up so big that they would abandon the run game and just start throwing the ball around. And then when you're doing that,
Mike McCarthy does that anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So Johnny, let's get into what Big Papa's asking, because I am curious as well.
So Big Papa's asking, if you're on the audio side, says, what are Staley's tendencies regarding man and match principles or man match principles? So man match really has a lot more roots with Vic Fangio. Vic Fangio did a lot of that stuff and brought a lot of it into the league, and that's really been his like bread and butter and a staple of all of his coverage concepts and ideas that he has over the years, is really having to do with, and sometimes they'll look like they're in just pure man coverage, and they'll have man match just based upon a release of a receiver, not even like if they're bunched or if they're switching their releases. It's simply this receiver released with his inside foot. I'm going to call him the number 2. You're going to get him because I know these are the routes that he runs with, that sort of a thing. Like Vic Fangio is very detailed and all that stuff. That was part of why he was having some issues there with the Dolphins, is like some of the guys there just wanted to just play man coverage, and they wanted to be there, and they didn't want to have to do all these, like, if this receiver makes this sort of release where I'm going to have to play something else and I'm going to have to do this. And they didn't like that as much. But all that to say, that's a lot of that's rooted with Vic Fangio, and Brandon Staley has been a Vic Fangio disciple. Like he really came out, and a lot of the stuff he was doing was very much rooted in all of Fangio's ideas and concepts. So that those things work together very well. The system that we've ran with Saleh and Ryans, and now that I'm seeing sort of what we're doing here with Sorensen, I believe it's always kind of been a hybrid of like what Nick Saban would run and Vic Fangio. Now, Nick Saban had a lot of Fangio stuff in it too. Vic Fangio is very, very influential on the defensive side of the ball. But what Brandon Staley is bringing is very much in line and has a lot of the same ideas and philosophies as what we've done. So I think it should be a pretty seamless kind of addition there. His biggest role is just imagine him as the Mike McDaniels of the defense. Mike McDaniels was somebody who was allowed to mainly just be very, very creative on the offensive side of the ball, watch film, not to scout as much, but to look at it and say, and say, we can make this change, and it really causes a lot of problems, is going to cause problems, leverage problems for the defense. Brandon Staley is going to look at this and say, okay, these are what everybody around the league is doing. We can't, because Sorensen isn't going to be able to sit there and watch every team and what the Giants are doing, or what Mike McDonald in Seattle is doing. He's going to be able to look at all these people and say, these guys are doing some interesting stuff there. Can we add this element? Can we do that at this time against this team? He's just another really smart guy that's in the room that is going to be able to look for the small advantages. So I'm really excited about what I think Brandon Staley can bring to the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, I'm stoked as well. It's going to be fun to see. Quick shout out before we move on to PowerBrandSystems.com. They put we've talked about the website 3 or 4 times already. The members site that Johnny has all these breakdowns that we're talking. He just digs deeper and dives deeper into that stuff with coverages, and then on the offensive side with route trees and things like that. So shout out to PowerBrandSystems.com. Our guys, man, they really help us out with the website, making it look clean. If you, for your business or anything, need anything in regards to a website that can build funnels and all things like that, be sure to check them out. The link is in the description. And I want to also point out again, Dre, man, does so much for the Niner faithful with new podcasts and different things that he's doing. I'll pitch mine real quick, and then I want Dre to talk about his before we go into a little bit of Brandon Ayuk stuff and how we're feeling there. So yes, this past week, we actually celebrated National Lazy Day. And I point that out because my other podcast, Sports Idiot Nation, we dove into that, and it was a really fun conversation. came out yesterday. We drop new episodes every Monday and Thursday. So check out Sports Idiot Nation. It was a really fun conversation on what you like to do when you're having a lazy day. If you don't have a honey-do list, or if you're able to be lazy, what are the things that you get into with watching comedies or playing games or watching sports? It was a really good. We had a lot of fun doing that. So check that out. Sports Idiot Nation on YouTube and on all your social medias. Dre, your turn. Tell us what you got going on, and let's get into some Brandon Ayuk after that.
Yeah, no, if you want to follow me and my content, just go to nicotina.net. You'll find links to all my channels. I have 3 different channels. That's why it's called Nicotina Network, because I have 3 channels, which is the Nicotina Show, which we cover movies and pop culture. Dre Area Sports, we cover all Bay Area sports, mainly Niners, but, you know, I do cover Warriors and Giants as well. And then Beyond the Unknown, which is about UFO, aliens, missing people, and Bigfoot. It's a lot of fun. And we have our season finale coming up next week. We talked to Ron Moorhead, who's a legendary Bigfoot researcher. Anyway, check out nicotina.net. Memberships are available on the website, and that's the best way to support the channel. Or you can do so by becoming a member over on YouTube or joining us on Patreon as well. So that's where you can find me and all of my content.
Dope. Yeah. Check it out, man. Love hanging out with you. This is so fun. Here's what I want to do. I want to create a mini poll and boost the algorithm here. And I simply want you to, I know Quiffle Ball, we went a whole hour. I was going to brag about that. I have a real quick on that.
Too.
So real quick on that, Quiffle Ball, you did, because I was thinking this. I have a local Monday podcast / radio show local to Fort Wayne, Indiana, and it's called A Case for the Mondays. And we had a thing with my buddy Caleb on the show where we refused to talk about Taylor Swift last year, and we made it like 6 weeks in a row, and like we congratulated each other, and then all of a sudden we had to bring it up because something happened or whatever. But that was like the same feeling. We went a whole hour. And so here's what I want to do is just create a poll, and you're going to say hashtag yes or hashtag no. Do you feel better, yes or no, the longer that this goes on, with the idea that he is going to actually stay in the Bay? So I will start it off hashtag yes. So I do feel better. The longer that this plays out, I really think the chances of him staying increases. Dre, your thoughts?
Well, you can tell because the way I replied to it was hashtag in lowercase yes, because I feel like, yes, he is going to stay with San Francisco, but there still is a possibility that the talks could break down. But I think
I went uppercase, baby.
Everything that we're hearing, it sounds like sort of what Johnny was alluding to, that it's about guaranteed money that they're trying to figure out. I think that this deal is going to get done probably through the weekend, but I think we're really, really close to it being worked out. But I think there is that small chance, of that small possibility that shit breaks down, and then they go, all right, Steelers,
look at these votes. Look at these votes, bro.
Got. But at the end of the day, it just needs to get done, because to me, it's like you can't sign Trent Williams until you sign Brandon Ayuk. Even though Trent Williams, like I was saying on my other show, is in a whole different class than Brandon Ayuk. Brandon Ayuk is a very, very good receiver. He's damn good, but he's not, in my opinion, he is not a generational talent. He's not like a guy like Terrell Owens, Jerry Rice, Justin Jefferson, guys who are just above top. You know what I mean? So, but he is really good, and he's really good in our offense. And I think that having him is going to make us a much stronger competitor for the Super Bowl. I think losing him would be somewhat devastating to the offense, because they'd have to make adjustments right before the season, which I would not want to see.
Right.
Yeah, I feel like the longer this goes on, the likelihood of Ayuk staying increases dramatically. One, teams become less willing to give up draft capital to get a guy as the later or closer to the season you get, and they have the less time to acclimate them into the offense. Two, if the 49ers were really serious about trading him, and the Steelers were really serious, that and it was reported that there was already a compensation package that the 49ers were okay with in place. The fact that and that Brandon Ayuk had agreed to the terms of their contract. The fact that neither one of them really wanted to pull the trigger means that neither of them, that they both really do want to stay with San Francisco.
Right.
And so once you clear that hurdle and say, we both really do want this to work and we're not that far off, that brings two sides together to say, let's figure out really how to make this happen. And so, if it was Brandon Ayuk saying, I'm getting this much money, the end, guys, then the 49ers look at that and they say, well, Steelers are offering you the contract it is. We're getting compensation. We cannot match that. We'll trade you. I think they were at a stalemate and both sides started playing chicken to see who would blink first to flush out exact. Neither side wanted to take the first step in starting this negotiation really to bridge the gap is what it feels like.
And we're not blinking at the level that Brandon wants us to, and we don't need to.
We don't need to.
Well, if the 49ers are saying, look, we offer you $25 million a year, and Brandon is saying, I want 30, and they say, no, that's not going to happen. Come in with something less.
28.
And he's going to say, I'm not going to negotiate with myself. You make an offer, and they're going to say, well, we're not going to negotiate with myself. I'm not, we're not going to do this. When both sides it feels like they've been locked in that for a long time, and this became, well, then, we got to poke the bear a little bit. We got to, flush this out. It works for both sides. One, Brandon Ayuk's side gets to see how do the 49ers value him, because what are they willing to take in return in trade compensation? If they're asking for a first round pick and a third, or second and a third, or something, whatever that valuation equals out to, you can go back to past trades and say, look, that's on par with this guy who was paid in this tier of the league in his trade compensation or in his contract compensation. So you get to see, as Brandon Ayuk said, this is exactly how you do value me. You have slotted me as this kind of a value, so pay that. Mm-hmm. And Brandon and the 49ers also get to see Brandon Ayuk negotiate a contract with a team that he doesn't really want to go to. So you're able to say, well, we'll come in and just a little bit under that. And we get to then, you get to not have to move your family, go to a different team, go to an Arthur Smith offense. You don't have to go to all that to a quarterback situation that is much less quality than ours. Oh. So you get this works for both sides. For me, it was like they got right to the edge. I mean, I do believe that it was on the table for him to be traded. Oh, but the fact that that trigger hasn't been pulled yet tells me they walked it to the edge, both looked at it and said, okay, let's meet on a ground so neither of us has to jump. Right. Because we've seen exactly how far each one will go. We know exactly where that edge is now. So now we can talk about how to get some middle ground. So I feel like the longer this goes on, that actually the better chances Ayuk does have of signing. Yeah, I feel like that's how this has worked out. I do believe that it was really right on the door of being traded, but the fact that he hasn't now, I'm like, what? If this takes another 7 days, I'm okay with that, because I feel like the longer this goes, the better the chances are. Remember, Nick Bosa was still 22 days away from being signed at this point last year. Deebo Samuel was still 2 weeks away from being signed.
Yeah, we forget.
Last year. So, or
point.
2 years ago. So,
great point.
If Ayuk signs in 3 days, he will have signed sooner than Deebo Samuel or Nick Bosa. So I'm okay with that.
Yeah. Dre, I want to ask you, as Technic says, absolutely, both were on the cliff. It's worded it great here. Both were on the cliff, looked over, and did not like it as much as the alternative, which is, let's back up a little bit and maybe talk to each other. Dre, what I want to ask you is, I want to make sure that we are up to date, I believe, and get your take on this. So we're under the understanding that they've agreed money-wise that they're good there, and then the issue is a 4th or 5th year option. Is that where the breakdown is?
It could be in the guaranteed money, but another report suggests that it's the amount of money agreed, but now it's on the length in the years. So there could be a question of how many years is this contract going to be worth, or lengthwise. So that could be what's holding things up. But I think what San Francisco did was actually pretty smart. Look, the fact that Ayuk was like, I want my contract, and he said, "Oh, I want to trade." Right? That was one of their plays. Like, they knew that was coming. Right? The Niners had to know that was coming eventually. But what did they do? Instead of saying, like the Jets did with Hassan Reddick, release a statement saying, "We're not trading you. You're not going anywhere. You got to report to camp," right? They said, "Hey, let's do this. Let's let him seek out a trade," which I was shocked they even did that. But they're like, let's let him seek out a trade, and let's see what we can get back. Why not? Unfortunately, what they got back wasn't really anything they really wanted to deal with, because it was just small.
And they knew that. I think they knew that, right?
I mean, Kendrick Bourne, if we would have got him, I'd have been like, oh my God, what's next? You got to re-sign Jimmy Garoppolo? It's like, dude, no.
JJ Stokes coming back or something?
JJ Stokes. And so it was like, look, let's just see what it can bring us, right? At the same time, we're going to see what his value is. What are teams willing to give up for Brandon Ayuk? And we saw that what they were getting in return wasn't all that much. So they can use that to their advantage of saying, hey, look, we were only getting a Kendrick Bourne. We were only getting an Amari Cooper. We weren't getting these stud players or these high draft picks, in compensation, for your services. So I think they can use that in terms of like they're negotiating. But I kind of like what they did, because I thought they were crazy for allowing him to seek out a trade. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, how could you want this guy to go away? But I think it actually worked in their favor. And so I think this deal does get done, and I think it gets done either this weekend or next week.
Yeah, that would be amazing. I am not just being realistic. I don't think it's going to happen like today or tomorrow, meaning we're not going to see him on the field against the Saints or anything. But man, I would love for that to happen, where he'd be ahead of schedule regarding what Johnny said with when Bosa signed and when Debo signed and all that. Like, that would be great if he was ahead of that schedule, but we'll have to wait and see. We don't like hearing that, but that is where we're at. I do have another announcement that I'm going to keep you guys in limbo for. I have the exact seats that my parents and I purchased that I will share with you next week. We did purchase them. We spent a pretty penny on them, I will say. So they're good seats. I will let you know the section and the seat that we will be, so that we can meet up with anyone else who's going to the game. It's going to be amazing. Monday Night Football against the New York Football Jets. I like to say that. It's New York Football Giants is the thing that Chris Berman always said, but I like to just say it just to like keep it interesting. So, okay. So again, the breakdown of the channel, we're going to come to you with Dre Area on Fridays, talk about the upcoming game, talk about what's going on.
So,
and then, right.
Sorry. So I was writing something up real quick, just because I'm a more visual person, to explain why the hang up can be on 3 years versus 4 years. People have asked me about this. Why would the 49ers want a 3-year contract with him versus a 4-year contract? Wouldn't that make more sense? Because then you're going to lock him up for longer. You can spread that money out over longer. And this is why I say it comes down to the guaranteed money, and incentives structure like that. So the guaranteed money on that does start to change a little bit. So I typed this up real quick. So we're looking at that is the wrong screen. That's our notes right there.
Like, what?
Sorry. Here we go. Here's the right screen.
Yeah.
Okay. So with let me bring it back to this look. With a 3-year contract on with $28 million per year, generally these players are looking at about 40% of the money guaranteed. So that gives you $33.6 million of guaranteed money if you're doing a 3-year $84 million contract. So you can structure that with a $27 million signing bonus. That gives you $9 million per year on prorated bonus. That gives you $6. Then you fully guarantee this year's base salary at $6 million. So that puts you at about the same. It's a little bit higher of a cap number this year than he is right now. Right now he's at 14.1. You go to 15. That's doable. That is totally doable for this year. that sets you up well. The reason they do that is because I think they want basically to see Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk for one more season to figure out who they're going to commit to long term. They want to see if Deebo stays healthy this year, all this year, they're committing to Deebo going forward. If Deebo doesn't stay healthy, they're going to commit to Brandon Ayuk going forward. I think that's what this is really about, because once you go to 4 years, you're at $112 million total with 40% guarantees. That's $44.8 million in guarantees. So if you do the same sort of prorated signing bonus, so your year-over-year prorated signing bonus is the same. It's now a $36 million signing bonus. You have $8 million in guaranteed salary this year. That's how you fit under this $44 million guarantees. The difference that changes is that for 2025, your dead money hit on Brandon Ayuk is $18 million for next season. If you're at 3 years, if you're at 4 years, it's 27.8. So at $18 million, you can restructure Deebo's contract, give him an extension, and save that $18 million. You can save $18 million in just restructuring Deebo next year. You can't save 27.8 by restructuring Deebo next year. Deebo has like a $22 million base salary next year. 21-22. So you can save all of that money if you cut Brandon Ayuk next year. This is where their hangup is, I think, right now, is why it's 3 years versus 4 years, is the 49ers want both of these guys basically in another contract year. I think they want them in that. I think they want Deebo to see that. And so being able to see this out there, I think that's what the hangup is on of 3 years versus 4 years.
All I know is that's a lot of freaking money, man. I would take $1 million just to, and I don't care what it would, whatever job I could take. You know what I mean? That
I'll take out the trash for the Niners.
Shoulders all day.
Yeah, exactly. Or the get back guy.
Yeah,
I would love to do that. Guys, get back. Hey, get back.
What's his name? Big Dom.
Yeah.
From the Eagles.
Yeah. Oh gosh.
Don't touch the players.
Yeah, and he went viral for 8 seconds because of us.
He was at the Senior Bowl. I don't know why he was at the Senior Bowl. Because Sirianni wasn't there. I took pictures of him. He was walking up and down the sideline.
I think we talked about that. Yeah.
I think it was great that it came out later on. One of the reasons why the Eagles are tanking is because Big Dom isn't there to keep Nick Sirianni in check and calm him down. Like, what the fuck? I was like, what kind of statement is that? Like, what is this guy like? Is he that loopy that he's just like, ah?
Sirianni
kind of crazy. Sirianni sucks.
He's cheeks. Man, yeah, no, that was great the way you broke that down. Whenever, I will say, Johnny is like batting 1,000. He's 37 for 37. Whenever he cuts me off, it is always for the greater good. So I will always
the greater good.
No, because that was good. I am very much that way too. The way that you break it down that way is helpful, and I'm sure to the rest of the faithful is helpful. So again, what I was saying before was, again, just a breakdown of the channel. Be sure to hit the notification bell so that you can see when the video drops of, the X's and O's, the Y's and hows. All of that is so good. Johnny changed up the music. I got to get used to it, man. I don't know how I feel about it.
I'm thinking of going back.
It
didn't get a warm welcome.
I'll be honest.
If it's not broke, don't fix it, man.
Well, so some of the thing was I had a number of comments throughout the season last year. People were like, "Okay, can you please change the music? It's like it."
But it wasn't
I
better.
just can't stand it. Wow, it's hard.
Yeah,
I'm gonna be completely vulnerable and open in this moment.
All right.
So the music that has been on there for a couple of years is from the YouTube Studio Library. That it was just like a song I found, and I have seen a couple other videos over the years that have the same music. I'm like, that's my background.
I remember I texted you, dude. I texted you last year.
Yeah.
Dude, your music is on.
It's because it has a free license through and a permanent license through YouTube. So there's no royalty on it. YouTube paid for that song from a composer. But I was like, okay, it's really hard to find the right vibe for this kind of stuff that isn't like orchestra music.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't fit with what this is. I need this chill kind of vibe. like that I'm going for. And I remember I looked last year for a replacement, and I looked through like something like 2,000 songs on their library and could not find one that I really felt good about. I spent like 4 hours doing this.
Daddy, why are you on the computer?
Right,
oh, I'm listening.
Right, yeah, for real. My kids were like, Dad, can we go outside? And I'm like,
you love us?
I
gotta find this song.
So this year I was like, okay, I had such a hard time. What I'll do, and it's hard to find royalty-free music and stuff. I was like, I'll just make my own. So I actually created the new background song. I spent like a couple days this off season
on the drums,
putting it all together, doing the composition. Man. And so then people are like, nah, man, that ain't it. I'm like, dang.
Yeah, so now it hurts your feelings.
That's rough.
You got Johnny
go back to some
right
other
now.
joker.
Yeah. I'll say, hey, so I use Storyblocks. My company, I have a podcast production company. That's how I met Johnny. And we pay for storyblocks.com. Shout out to them. So I can get you any kind of beat that you want. We'll talk. We'll step into my office.
He's been holding this back the entire time.
No, I think Johnny kind of knew, but he just thought he had it. And like, hey, it's,
Well, I was feeling good about my background music.
I'm
like, all right, I think this is going to be the one.
It didn't bother me. I was just like,
and
whatever.
It was just like,
it doesn't bother me.
But I had like 15 comments that were like,
Adam,
nah, bro, bring the old music back, please. And I was like, dang.
And it was enough where I said something. I was like, it's just,
in the
I don't
comments?
know if it's better, like enough to bring it up, but anyway. So again, hit the notification bell so that when that reaction video comes out, whatever music it is, it's more about Johnny's voice going over why the X's zig and the O's zag. That is the main point. And then we'll come to you to give the reaction of the hows and the whys and the hows after the game is played, usually a Monday, and then we'll discuss what we think is going to happen on Friday with Dre from Dre Area Sports. So,
Collie, I just got to step in. Collie, maybe I'll send it to you. I actually did a remix on Breezy's Faithful to the Bay. I thought it was pretty fire. Send it to Breezy. He loved it. We haven't done anything with it, but
okay.
I'll send it to you.
Yeah.
There, like I said, there's many layers to Johnny. Apparently, the music layer is something that needs a little more time to simmer.
Yeah, if we were
talking
about,
talking about
American tanks, if we were talking American tanks, he would be good to go. But
like, y'all don't even know.
This is the Sherman of all songs.
We'll figure this out. We promise. Man,
y'all are doing me dirty up in here.
Johnny
I've been playing music for over 20 years, man. I studied music theory, everything. I got a German bass fretless bass sitting over here that was actually worked on by the same guitar tech who was Nirvana's guitar tech, was Foo Fighters guitar tech, Alice in Chains. Like, I took it to this guy's name.
He's like, I got a
Mike
German
Lowell.
Shepherd sitting next to it.
Not a German Shepherd. It was made in a factory out of Germany. But the guy's name was Mike Lowell. He passed away like 6 years ago. But Randy Jackson played one of his custom basses. You can find some Mike Lowell stuff every once in a while. It's Lull. He was the guy. He did the work on my bass, man. I've been like, music. Y'all are doing me dirty up in here. I'm getting fired up.
He's also a swordsman as well.
Yeah, man.
Well,
jack of all trades.
That's a whole different story.
Oh, no.
That's a whole story.
All right, man.
We got to get out of here.
Yeah, we got to get out of here. So again, thanks guys for the algorithm. We got our notification of 100 chats. That's always fun to see on our end. On our back end, we see when we have 100 comments. Always good to see that. So thank you for helping boost the algorithm. Get to the Niner Faithful. Follow Dre Area Sports, of course. Check out Sports Idiot Nation, and we will see you Monday. Enjoy the game. Fingers crossed for no crazy injuries. So with that, stay safe, stay healthy, and as always, go Niners.